welcome everyone to the Hivemind. This is now the Thursday of this kind of iteration of the Sanity Preserver. They definitely have like sprung out of a 5-week daily salon that we had to kind of make sense of COVID-19 and kind of like the opportunities that lie within COVID-19. And we've now pivoted into this more working focused setup, which is the next 3 weeks. So we basically took the best ideas over the last 5 weeks, and we're now going to talk about how can we actually put a few structures in place in which we can push for the better of those ideas. Okay, we have 22% who are new to those Hivemind salons, which is amazing. Welcome all of you guys. If there's one thing you guys are doing, then please, please, please make it join the Google group. That's our main point for collaboration throughout the meeting. That being said, today we took a plunge and we launched all the way into Slack. And a few of you who are on the call have already followed us there and introduced themselves. So Slack is definitely optional, but we've had it over the years. A lot of people kind of like were requesting a Foresight Slack in which they could just kind of collaborate on the various projects that we have. So please join that Slack if you'd like. And then the next question is, where are you located? North America, Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia. A lot of great answers there as well. We have, most of you are in North America, a few in Europe and a few in Asia. How are you feeling? Everything from quite okay to very positive, with most of you feeling a number 4. That's amazing. Okay, great. With that said, without further ado, I want to welcome our panelists to today's session. Today's session will be on how can we actually come up with global rituals, prizes, and competitions that can kind of celebrate long-termism and that can celebrate cooperation, that can celebrate a global understanding. And this came out, I mean, somewhat, prizes and competitions and rituals and celebratory dates that's usually like in the toolkit of I think people that try to foster long-termism, just because those are really good tools to do a variety of different things, right? And to get people interested, to get people excited about certain issues. But why I think it's especially relevant for COVID-19, it's because we are already entering this kind of really amazing stage in which more people are actually willing to celebrate and show solidarity, and really across the board. I think even in New York, people are clapping and for the doctors now, which is I think a thing that we saw starting up in France. In Italy, people are singing. People are, I think, singing operas to thank their healthcare workers. So there's already this movement going on where I think people are kind of like willing to tap into those kind of like collective experiences. So I think it would be actually a really, really cool, opportunity to keep that going. And we are specifically looking out for a few things here today, which is on the one hand, we're trying to actually get a Facebook event going about Dr. Lee's Celebration Day, and we want to discuss this with all of you guys first so that it's right. And we are going to talk about a few other ways in which we can honor our heroes. And then we're going to talk about different prizes and competitions to actually motivate people to kick into action. Okay, with that being said, I have a fantastic lineup here today. I couldn't imagine any better people to be talking about this topic with. For once, we have Creon Levit, who actually gave a Sanity Preserver talk, like a salon, in the past few weeks. And he actually really came up with this idea of a Dr. Lee Celebration Day. So we are very happy to have him here to brainstorm on that. Then we also have Joon, who is, I think, really the master of prizes. He has not only spearheaded the longevity prize, which is really fostering, I guess, innovation around longevity, but also came up with the incentive prize on incentives, which is just a fantastic title. and we did a Foresight version of that one at a previous Vision weekend. So I think if there's anyone who knows about how to set up prizes and in the right way, then really it's Joon. And lastly, we have Francesca. And Francesca, I'm incredibly happy that you got pointed out to me by David Grossoff, who's actually, I think, on this call. So after we talked about the Dr. Lee Celebration Day, I think David shot me an email and was like, this person, and I was like, okay, and I checked out your website, and wow, I have to say, your books are really fantastic. I encourage all of you guys to check out Francesca's website. Maybe Lou, you can post it in the chat here. She's written on rebel wisdom for girls, and now she actually just like popped out a book already celebrating Dr. Lee and the crown-shaped virus, and it's for kids, so it's a really nice way already to celebrate heroes. And I mean, this was a really fast turnaround project. So Francesca, thank you so much for doing that, and thank you so much for being so spontaneous and coming on here today. I link to Francesca's book from our collaborative notes doc. And if there's one thing you should be opening right now, then it's this doc. I'm going to share it again here in the chat. So please open this document. On that document, we're soliciting your feedback. We're asking you the questions that we're asking the speakers, and we encourage you to chip in more questions to make this workshop interactive and useful to you. So welcome all of you. Thank you for making time. How are you doing?
Good.
Pretty good.
Francesca,
Thanks.
Francesca, where are you?
I'm in Rome.
Oh my gosh.
I usually live in Los Angeles, but I decided to come to Rome 5 weeks ago with a very counterintuitive decision, because Italy back then was the world epicenter of coronavirus. But when they started talking about closing the borders, I decided to board one of the last flights to Italy, because I couldn't stand the idea of being so far away from my parents during a crisis like this. So I'm in Rome right now.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us from Rome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, amazing. And Creon, Joon, where are you guys? Creon, I'm going to see you tomorrow, I think.
I think so, right? But let's keep that under our hats for now. Yeah, I'm in Palm Springs in Southern California. Basically, lucky enough to be locked down in paradise.
Yes, Joon, where are you? Aha! I haven't unmuted you. Here we go.
He's in Black Rock City, apparently. About 20 years ago.
Hi, Creon. Francesca.
Hey.
For hosting. Looking forward to the session. I'm in Menlo Park, California.
Amazing. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Okay, good. Let's dive right into it. For everyone who's already checking out the collaborative notes doc, Creon, could you share a little bit about how you came up with the Dr. Lee Remembrance Day, just to get everyone up to speed?
Sure. Well, I mean, I tend to be perhaps a little bit more conservative politically and critical of China than a lot of my Bay Area friends, although that's of course not universally true, and neither of me nor of them. But anyway, I got fascinated by the story of this guy, as many of us did, and particularly, the ironic twist, or the tragic ironic twist of him going back to work after being sort of suppressed by the Chinese authorities and dying of the very virus he tried to warn people about. And, there's much to that story, much of which I hope to continue learning, particularly from some of you who I'm sure know more about it than I do. Anyway, it just seemed to me, okay, well, how I came up with it, I don't know. It just popped into my head. Maybe I even heard it from someone else. It just seemed to me that he was a very honorable man who deserved to be honored. And I think we can get into this later, unless you want to right now, Allison. I think there's a number of interlocking pieces which ideally, although probably naively and unrealistically, could really help China in even the Chinese Communist Party if they did the right thing with this person. So we could talk about that later, but It seems like on the one hand, it would be great for the world to honor this guy. I just even found some people want to nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize, which I don't think you can do for someone who's dead, but nevertheless, I get the idea. So, I mean, there's a lot of anti-China and kind of neutral parties in the world who might be very pro Dr. Li Day, in part because it's the right thing to do, and in part because, you know, it's kind of pressuring or shaming China. But I think there's another way to look at it, where if China saw the bigger picture, they could do the right thing and get out in front of this. Anyway, maybe it doesn't tell the story of how I came up with it, but it tells some of the story of why I'm continuing to promote it.
Okay, thank you. I think just to get everyone up to speed here about what we're talking about, Francesca, you would be an amazing person to fill people in on who is Dr. Li and why is he important?
Well, I decided to write about Dr. Li because I had a fight with some members of my family because there were a lot of conspiracy theories on the origins of coronavirus being spread, and many of them were rooted in xenophobia and fear and ignorance. So usually my concern is always like, what can I do to protect children from this narrative that they are being exposed to in their families about the origins of this virus? Because the problem was that the real story is told in a way that sounds complicated, whereas many conspiracy theories are told in ways that are more engaging narratives. So I was looking for a way to narrate to children what is going on with the coronavirus and to give them sort of a little bit of an origin story that was based on facts. And that was also celebrating that there are a lot of things that we don't know yet. And as scary as that may sound, it is also the beauty of science to go after what you don't know unless you know more. And that is how I found the story of Dr. Li. So I was in between, I was traveling, and I hadn't caught it like the first time around when, a lot of people, I found out later about Dr. Li. So I started researching this story, and I thought that this was a perfect hero because he's the first hero of this pandemic. And it was, this great symbol of freedom and of the importance of science, but also, the fact that he was an ophthalmologist and not a virologist, and that he was stepping out of his established role because he just noticed that something was wrong and he decided to speak out. That was incredibly important, I thought, as a message to pass on to children, because in moments like this, each of us is asked to go above and beyond our job description, to try and do everything that we can to help the people around us. And the other thing was that I think he is a perfect hero because telling his story allowed me to write a children's book that could protect children from interiorizing racism and xenophobia, because then, it's a way of celebrating a Chinese hero in this moment where, unfortunately, in many different contexts, Chinese people are being ostracized and addressed as the enemy almost. So I found that this was a very, and it was very surprising for me because there was it wasn't a particularly sophisticated launch, the thing that I did. I decided to invest in hiring this illustrator, and I decided to work on it with my designer, but it's a little story. I just put it up on my website, and I posted a message on my Facebook page. And the story really took off spectacularly. And like the second day that it was up, translators from all over the world started contacting me to volunteer translations into, now we're live with 21 languages. And by tomorrow we'll be live with, I think, 26. So today I received translations in Uzbek, Russian, Danish, traditional Chinese. So it's really been unbelievable, the kind of reception that the story had.
Wow, that's amazing. I posted a link to the book where you can download it in all available languages here in the chat. And it's really fantastic. It's not too long. It's super concise and just like it conveys a very beautiful, concise message. And I'm hoping we'll get back to more specifics in the books in a second. For now, I would love to hear from Joon. What kind of like what, if anything, symbolizes Dr. Lee for you?
Dr. Lee is, I think, an example of people that are trying to do the right thing that has global impact. And I think all of our roles are evolving in the global stage. I mean, we're on the brink of, I think, the most spectacular age. And I think, they've been growing pains to get to this point for 100,000 years to get to globalization. But there's a sense of stewardship that is emerging, definitely among the young for sure, because this is all they've ever known is globalization. But I think even among the generation that are in power today, I think they're engaging at a completely different level. And the things that are done for the right reasons just have a way of self-flourishing, like Francesca's in her story, right? So rituals matter, whatever the methodology is. I think none of us are married to the tool itself. We're, I think, all married to the outcome. And I think that's a beautiful thing about this. And that's why this group is, fantastic, right? I mean, we're going to learn about the tools, and I'm happy to provide you my perspective on how tools, what's worked, what are the challenges. So happy to dive into that conversation.
Awesome, yes, and I cannot wait until we're going to jump to the prizes as well in a second. And you're totally right. At the end of the day, it's kind of like it's about creating. I guess like creating the celebration around this hero and motivating people to step up and do the right thing. And the tools are kind of like a secondary thing. Also, I want to just flag there, we had a meeting 2 days ago on champion civic responsibility. The video is up, maybe you can share it in here. And this is definitely one where we also talked a lot about, how can we empower people to actually step up and do the right thing. And I think the next generation is exactly the people we should be consulting there. All right, so if we dive in for now, so I think I shared in this chat a link to our Facebook event. So what we'd love for you guys to do is actually, review that event if you have time. And because, I think before we start sharing it, I think it would be great if we get it right? So what I would love for all of you guys to do is review this. Please flag in the chat if you see anything that you think needs improvement. We're hoping that we can kind of like use this as a template at least to kind of get some momentum going around Dr. Lee. And, I think what Creon made really clear in our discussion yesterday about this topic is that it's not only to celebrate Dr. Lee, right, Creon?
Yeah, so let me say a few things about this. I mean, this idea, just the basic idea for those who aren't going to jump right on the Facebook and all this kind of stuff, which I'd love to get the discussion going about. We haven't really, anyway, the idea is on the anniversary of Dr. Lee's death. I don't even know if Dr. Lee is how I'm supposed to address him. I know there's questions about Chinese surnames and ordering and pronunciation, but I'm just going to call him Dr. Lee until someone corrects me. So the idea is that he died on February 6th, and the proposal is that starting next year, February 6th becomes a worldwide
February
day.
7th, correct?
Sorry, February 7th, you're right. Probably February 6th on one side of the dateline. Anyway, whatever. February 7th, yes, becomes a worldwide 24-hour honorary day to reflect on the COVID pandemic, pandemics in general, the state of our world and its vulnerability, what we've learned, what we haven't learned, and of course also to honor this man and all the other healthcare workers, all the other whistleblowers, all the other frontline workers, all the people who are out there, delivering our packages and cleaning our sewers and repairing our internet lines and doing all this stuff out there in the world while we sit around in luxury and whine about how the lockdown isn't safe enough and we've got to extend it even farther. So I'm a little bit bitter about this, as you can probably guess, but I think these people all deserve to be honored. The whistleblowers in China, and in a way it starts to get too big, because then I start to think, oh, well, now we should have a whistleblower day and we should honor Edward Snowden. And, you know, obviously it's going to get, if we let it grow too high, then to grow too large, then it becomes impractical and cumbersome, and everybody's going to object to one thing or another. So maybe we keep it simple and just honor, you know, Dr. Lee and the healthcare workers who laid down their lives for this, or maybe we can extend it. There's, yes, so I mean, I had these grandiose ideas that it could be a day where the whole world stops traveling and the whole world does not go to work, and we kind of remember what happened and try to think about it and honor it. And it would be interesting because it's not clear that we really have any worldwide days of celebration, at least that go beyond religions and go beyond countries. In the US, we're fortunate enough to have Thanksgiving, which, you know, like if you kind of idealize it, is a non-religious festival for the whole nation. Everybody's welcome. We all do it together. I think that some sort of, and there's reflection that goes on about gratitude, ideally, during Thanksgiving. So I think that it's an interesting idea of a worldwide day of celebration that is for the whole of humanity and that's not based in any nation or any creed. So anyway.
I mean, there is, I think, you know, Thanksgiving also has, you know, a lot of, let's say, pushback, right? Even like within the US. But there's definitely, for example, like Earth Day, I think is one that I was thinking about immediately.
Good point.
You know, Earth Day is one which I think really hits a global note. And, you know, I think with Dr. Lee, I mean, it's, yeah, I think, you know, for all the reasons that Francesca mentioned it, I think he's just a really like amazing and quite uniting person to celebrate. I would welcome anyone to review the Facebook event, and if you have any comments on this, if you want to make this better, or if you want to help us share this and make this a national and an international celebratory day. If you have any experiences with that, or if you know any good network and communities to tap, then please let us know. You can already start discussing this in the chat. We definitely want to get it right before we start sharing. Would anyone here from the speakers like to comment on the Facebook event?
I have one more thing to say, Allison, and then I kind of like this is not like my life's work or anything like this. This is just a thing that I've been thinking about, you know, for a week or three, and while I do other things. But it seems like it might be useful and it might gain traction, particularly now. I think in a few months when things may have settled down, you know, it'll be a lot harder. But whatever. Here's the thing: I need help, or like this idea needs help in one particular way, and I'm sure many other ways, but one particular way that I'm cognizant of and where I want you all to please suggest to me or to the Facebook event or to Allison, or, you know, anyway, somehow weave this in, because I'm really unclear about this. Ideally, I want the Chinese Communist Party to take the lead in creating this International Day of Remembrance for Dr. Lee. I feel that if they did this, you know, like this it would reflect well on them. It would, what is the opposite of lose face? Gain face? That's what it would do for them, I guess, in the Chinese way of speaking. They would gain face because they would be taking the moral high ground. And to me, they would save face. Yes, beyond save face. It's not just a cleanup. It's like a positive thing. So anyway, my point is this: if they did this, I view it as kind of like what the U.S. did with Martin Luther King Day. Okay, with Martin Luther King, I mean, I'm one of the people who was young enough when I was a little baby, when I was just like 3 years old or something like that. Martin Luther King was assassinated. I didn't really know anything about him or this idea, but I grew up in an integrated neighborhood, so I knew something about race and racial issues, even at that young age. 4 years old, I felt it. Anyway, I was, you know, later on, as I understood Martin Luther King, I realized that, and eventually years down the line when we had Martin Luther King Day established in the United States, this is a painful holiday for us, right? This is a holiday where basically we admit that that this great man you know, the sort of modern day Gandhi, who was campaigning and advocating for nonviolent reform to an unjust system, you know, and for civil rights, a system that we were, a very racist, segregationalist system that we are not proud of in general in the United States. We honor this man and admit that we had this situation that we were not proud of. You know, we can argue about how much it persists to this day. We admit that he was martyred and murdered by one of ours. We are not proud of that. It's like, it is an admission that we were wrong collectively, and we can move past that. We can first of all admit it, and then honor the man who was martyred, and then move on culturally, you know, however, in whatever plotting, in, you know, partial way, but nevertheless. So I'm hoping that the Chinese it could be their Martin Luther King Day, where they could admit that something was wrong and that they were part of it, and that they are strong enough to see it and learn from it and move past it. I know that that's like possibly completely hopelessly naive, and the so-called corrupt Chinese Communist Party would never do such a thing.
You're putting it out there. Yeah, you're putting
Yeah.
it out there. So if anyone has a good intro there, then please send them our way. Okay, thank you so much, Creon. With that said, please contribute, please feedback on that day. We're going to start sharing it soon. And thank you. Before we move on into prizes, Francesca, you mentioned that there's a few people already that contacted you about translating your book. Is there any other way in which people could help get that going, and which people could help share this? Because, you know, this is addressed at the next generation. I think this is a kind of like a beautiful way to like rope them in and make them feel powerful and hopeful.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up a little. My connection is a little unstable. You're asking.
I was saying about your book. How could people help? Either, you know, share the book, or do you need more translators? Like, how can people help? I guess, like, make the next generation feel empowered and hear that narrative.
Oh yeah, the most important thing would be to share the link. Not the file, the link, so people can choose to download it in their favorite language, and also this is part of a bigger newsletter that I started with my team that is called Stories to Dream Big for when your room feels too small. So sharing the link is with I don't know if you have kids in your groups with other parents or with your family. That would be the most important thing. Translators, I don't know that you know, we need I think we will be at 30 languages by the end of next week. So I mean, sure, if you want to translate it in Faroese, or I'd be happy. But I'm not sure that we necessarily need more languages, because we are already covering a huge amount. But one thing that I actually, because these are all volunteer translators, I try to have a cross check. So right now I am trying to find someone who can help me review the traditional Chinese translation. So that is something very specific and very fast that could help me. About, if I can give a piece of feedback about what Creon was saying.
Yes, please.
Right, so what is happening is that Dr. Lee has become a hot word. So content with the name of Dr. Lee is being censored all over the internet in China, I've been told. Because what happened with my book is that the book became viral in China because it was picked up by activist groups that are protesting the regime. So I realized this because I started seeing tweets from Chinese bots that are activists against the regime. And then I've been contacted by a lot of people that, because they had spread my book in Telegram, had been contacted by the police. So I think that we are very far away from having the Communist Party embrace. I mean, of course, anything can happen, but right now this is the situation. And the people that are many Chinese people are emailing me to thank me for the book, but they told me that it is very hard to circulate it because they are censoring it and shutting it down everywhere.
Wow, that's useful feedback. Yes, Creon, do you want to come back to that?
Thanks. Yeah, I hear that and I recognize that, and believe me, I'm as hard on China probably as almost anyone on this call right now. I still want to put it out there as a goal and as something that some of us at least might recognize would be the right thing, however long it takes, or even if it doesn't happen. I just was reviewing it, and the time between Martin Luther King's assassination and and Ronald Reagan signing into law Martin Luther King Day as a national holiday in the US was 15 years. I'm willing to wait 15 years if I have to for the CCP to change and sign it into law. We should give them arguably at least as long, right? Why should they be expected to grow up any faster than we did? But I still think, it might be good to hold it as a goal.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, everyone, contact me or Creon if you're interested in getting involved there and spread the word. The more channels we can tap, the better, and especially if you're in different countries, because we have a good reach in the US, but other countries would help. Okay, so as Joon already mentioned, a celebratory day or a celebration day is one of many tools, right, that you can use to incentivize long-term thinking and cooperation. And Joon is definitely a master of another really important tool, which is prizes. And I was wondering, Joon, if you could maybe share kind of like the background of like why you've set up so many fantastic prizes, and then what if any kind of like new prize may help us emerge stronger out of this crisis than before.
Yes, first of all, I'm not the master, but I learned from Peter Diamandis and Keith Powers, who was the co-founder of the X Prize. With Peter, worked with their family for many years to help design it. So I learned everything. I thought prizes were something else. I had no idea how powerful they were. And then more recently, Tachi Mata who used to run global health for Gates, who's on our National Academy board. So that one is an upside down X Prize, where it's a tournament of prizes. And that has a lot more winners. Anyway, I can talk more about prizes specifically, but I want to just make the general comment here for all of you. And it's all about solving the problem, and the methodology is to engage the public. You can call it crowdsourcing, you can call it whatever. We tend to think about it as inclusive stakeholding, is really giving stock options to the community where they have a vested stake in co-contributing to the outcome is a way to think about it. And then prizes sit underneath that as one of the ways to organize a community to produce the outcomes that we want. So again, we're only married to the outcome. Doesn't matter who wins, everybody wins if the outcome is successful. In longevity, when we launched this, there were no companies, patents were flat. And at the time, the medical system was focused on diseases of aging. So people are focused on second order, third order, fourth order problems, when in fact, they're all caused by the first order problem. And the issue is the more you solve second order problems, the more it creates new symptoms. So you're just kicking the can down the road. So even in terms of thinking about social dysfunctions, we want to get at the root cause of what causes nativism, nationalism, what causes alienation, what causes xenophobia, and then attack that. So go to the source code of what's causing these issues, because I think solving the downstream problems, number one, they're hard, and they actually create new problems for downstream of whatever the solutions are. So thinking about that as a model in terms of aging, we decided rather than treating the symptoms, hey, let's get the scientific leaders to focus some of their energies, not all of it, some of it on the core biology of aging. As a prize was the right methodology for that. Immediately it got picked up by the National Academy. So then we ended up transferring the entire project to the National Academy. So the whole thing's now run through the National Academies around the world. There's 40 nations that have contributed resources, and we've got a global team. So that, from our perspective, is launched. And the one way we know that is successful is that I get asked to be on longevity panels. And my answer on this is Allison is always no, because the fact that it's happening at all, we've already won. Back in 2013, there were no longevity panels in any conferences. So I got invited to another one today, and I just can't, I love the fact that other people are doing it. That way we can focus on the next project. The second project was on nutrition. The fact that there's no federal ownership of nutrition is actually run by commercial interests, or the USDA, which actually stands for Department of Ag, and their mission statement is take care of farmers. So there's actually no federal ownership of science for nutritional health. So how do you create a new federal agency that's going to take responsibility? I have no background in this. Ultimately, it has to be a bill. It's got to be signed. And you can't run an X Prize in Congress. That's corruption. You can't pay $1 million for a bill. So there we use the political motivations as a competition among them to create the first bill. So we essentially ran a competition inside Congress to write the first bill. And the way we did that was we had all the senior leadership of nutritional science on our group. It literally started with one op-ed piece that was not very good. I wrote it. And then everybody else contributed to the op-ed piece, the former Secretary of Ag, the former Commissioner of the FDA. That got published in the New York Times. And then now we have a document that just was submitted yesterday that now has our national leaders in nutrition. It has a former #2 at the NIH, former Secretary of Ag, former Undersecretary of Ag, current Department Chair of Harvard Internal Medicine Department, all co-signed a 30-page white paper on the national priorities on nutritional research. So it just gets better and better the more other people have stake in it. So that's the larger message. The more other people have stake in it. And in the case of longevity, most of the people in our group had no background in longevity. It literally started with conversations like this. But by giving them skin in the game, where we kept pulling people on the conferences on stage that had no background in longevity, and some portion of them became advocates. Same with nutrition. We're bringing people to the table, including big food. There are no enemies. We're not calling anybody out. We're saying, you know what, everybody means well. And we want you all to be part of the solution. So like the same thing with this book, we're having this book turned into your book. We want this to be your book. I mean, this is we're saying this is not a good draft. This is our first attempt. Oh, you can't see it. It's called Essays and Inclusive Stakeholding, and it's going to embody the spirit where it's going to be your essays, not our essays. We don't know what we're doing. So we put out a raw draft. The Pulitzer Prize was a raw draft. The National Academy Hidden Longevity Grant Challenge is now the second draft, right? So it just gets better and better, and it's through your words. So the action item for all of you is we want you to just tell us if you're interested in writing. You don't have to have any credential in writing. You just want to be interested, and we'll provide the support for you, including editors, so you can take a crack at writing. It just has to be on one of the topics related to inclusive stakeholding. And if you want to learn more about what that is, I'm happy to send you a free copy of the book. And then, so one way to participate in our grant challenges, one is around incentives. So many of our incentives are too narrow in terms of their outcome. So the stakeholding is too narrow. So how do you broaden the stakeholding and rewire incentives so we produce the outcome we want? That's a little bit more technical for people that are interested in kind of the mechanics of how incentives work and economics and so forth. But the second one is the one where we want to talk more about, because that one's already launched, is in year 2. It's on storytelling. So think about it as American Idol meets X Prize meets the Oscars. And the target audience are the unseen. So think about the first one went out to kids. So left to their own devices, the way their X Prize works is TikTok, which is going to be a race to the bottom. So it's going to produce more and more perverse behaviors. And it's going to be about self-promotion. And then they're going to grow up to be narcissists in 20 years. And suicide is going to be run by kids that have been trained on TikTok behavior, which is all race to the bottom. So the race to the top version is we're going to reward stories that actually serve the public rather than the storyteller. And the first one I put up there is on attention inequality. So we're focused on, okay, what is happening, right? And we want to introduce things in the culture that don't exist. So longevity didn't exist in culture. Again, no companies, no flat patents. There were some patents going on. So let's say we want to launch attention inequality into the cultural vernacular, because people talk about attention economy, they talk about wealth inequality, but now the wealth inequality is partially driven by the attention economy. And the attention inequality has never been higher in human society because of globalization. So in non-global communities, the maximum ratio of the most attention getting to the least attention getting was 200 to 1. Now it's 200 million to 1. And you cannot run a society this way with this amount of attention inequality, because you end up with lots of social dysfunctions and perverse behaviors. So we just want to introduce the concept of attention inequality to the community. And we put out a bad video, meaning it's a rough draft, and we're saying, okay, and we sent it to kids. Can you make a better version of this video for us? So what you get out of it is you get their engagement. They now have a stake. We're providing the financial support as well as the tools, but then it becomes their idea. And so they've already built out a Wikipedia page. Like, we're doing none of the work anymore, and it's just like starting to self-flourish. So we're going to be launching 11 storytelling X prizes, where we're going to ask them to remake our bad video. Here's our draft, just like the Palo Longevity Prize was a draft. The National Academy is a better version, right? Like, just show us a better. So you can go to attentioninequality.com. You can see the bad video we'll put up there, and you can see what the kids came up with. And it's just mind-boggling, the amount of creativity that emerges. So think about it as like decentralized, everyone's got a stake. It's like Burning Man, right? It's global, it's X Prize-esque. So we're gonna be launching 11 of these this year. Well, we're starting to launch 11 of these this year. I don't know when the time frame will may slip a little bit. So each of these, we have a video, you make a better version, and then next year we're gonna start a songwriting competition on each of these videos. Now, for you guys, you're welcome to enter into the video competitions. You take a look at the attention inequality. It kind of describes the rules, how it works. But we put out a very mediocre book called Essays on Inclusive Stakeholding. We know you can do a better version. So we can send you a free copy. And if you can you can rewrite any of the chapters in your own words. You can write about any one sentence and turn it into a new essay. But we want you guys to co-author the future of inclusive stakeholding.
Fantastic. Thank you, Joon. I just shared the link to the Attention Inequality website. And then where can they get involved if they want to hear more about the book?
Yeah, so just send me, I put my email at the beginning of this whole text chat. Send me a note that you're interested in writing an essay. It's an 800-word essay, so it's gonna be on one topic. I'll send you a copy of the book, and then we'll help you write. It doesn't mean that it's gonna end up in the final copy, but we'll provide the resources to help you be a better writer and contribute to co-authoring in the future.
Fantastic.
And it'll be published as an essays in an inclusive way. It'll be your stories.
Okay, fantastic, man. That's great. Really, anytime you're on, there's a new project that you're putting out there in the world. So it's hard to keep up, really. Francesca, I know that you're a writer too. Could you maybe, and you're addressing specifically kids, could you maybe do you want to say a few words about kind of like the power of stories and why you focus on stories as a way to engage others?
Allison, I'd like to ask Joon a question, or put out a question.
1 second, can we go with
Francesca's
question first?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so in the way that I look at storytelling for children is that it is the most important long-term investment one can make. So it is incredibly relevant to enhance the diversity of the stories that children are exposed to, because children's media is still full of taboos. There are a lot of topics, a lot of characters, a lot of stories that are not covered in children's media because they are deemed inappropriate for children. For example, gay characters are usually not present in children's books, or it is incredibly hard to find children's books that have female animals, like books about animals, or usually male is the default state. So there are a lot of things that we're exposed to from a very young age. The kind of stories that we are exposed to really shape our understanding of the world, and also how we think about our role in the world as we grow up. Of course, there are many of us then go beyond the sort of stereotypes that we've been inoculated by the kind of stories we were exposed to while growing up. But it is still very hard to get completely rid of, for example, in case of gay kids, of the sort of shame that was put on your shoulders by virtue of the fact that you grew up thinking, oh, I am something that cannot be said. I am something that cannot be part of a children's book. That puts a chip on our shoulders. And even though some of us are lucky enough to live, to go to college, to make life experiences that, for example, can free us from this sort of mindset, there are other people that maybe don't get to go through the same experiences, the same liberating experiences, and for whom that shame turns into frustration, hate, and a number of other things. So part of the way that I see my mission as a children's book author is I make sure to include as much diversity as possible in the stories that I write, because I want to make sure that the next generations grow up understanding that diversity is a fundamental value of being humans together, and that there is no, that being white and male is not the default state of a human being. We can communicate these things through children's stories and through children's books, and we can make sure to raise a generation of kids that is fundamentally more empathic and more capable of understanding people that don't share the same life experiences as them.
I love it. Great, thank you. That's fantastic. Okay, I think, are there any participants' question? Please raise your hand right now, either in the video or if you know how to, there's an easy button at the lower end of this chat. So feel free to raise your hand there as well. There should be a raise hand feature. I'm going through our many pages of participants, but I do not see a question. If I'm wrong, then please correct me in the chat. Meanwhile, Creon, you had a question for Joon.
You're on mute. You're on mute.
Right, a topic for discussion, and Joon would probably have already thought about this quite deeply, so in a way it's a question for him. So as some of you know, I've sort of been obsessed for a few years on human nutrition and metabolism and where it overlaps longevity, and also then that goes into our food system and regenerative agriculture and all these things being connected. Now even to COVID, they're all intimately connected. My question is there some way we can use this idea of the prizes? Can we make a prize which somehow incentivizes people to become metabolically healthy so that next time the virus comes around, they're 30 times less likely to die from it? It seems like this is a golden opportunity. I mean, I've even gone so far, and I know this, everyone's going to hate me and chastise me, and this has already happened, and tell me that I'm an awful person for saying this. But like, what if, in order to go back to work, you had to get your BMI down below a certain level? Would that be a prize that people would kind of sign up for, and then we'd have a much healthier population? I know that that's sort of an extreme case, but I'm just wondering, are there some way we can make tests or prizes, like get your C-reactive protein and your IL-6 down below a certain level, and now you can rejoin the workforce, or give them money? I'm not sure. Or how can we use these prizes to get people more healthy and combat the virus and all the other horrible diseases that are killing people prematurely and bankrupting our healthcare system even without this virus?
So two things that are fun about prizes is that we don't have to come up with the answer. Like, your proposal would be one of the competitors. Does that make sense? So we don't have to be married to any one form, because people will hack this better. So if you can stay on the price, that you're agnostic to the solution. But the other way to answer the question, instead of motivating that, is to actually do inclusive stakeholding, where you now have your accountability comes from having skin in the game in the future version of yourself. So, so much of the world's unfortunate outcomes have been due to exclusive stakeholding. So think about pollution as the excluded stakeholder in Royal Dutch Shell. So they think they're doing a great thing, but the environment bears the cost. Think about colonialism as the excluded stakeholder of imperialism. Think about Social Security. I mean, FDR meant well, but now the price is paid by the excluded stakeholder, which are future children. So our proposal is to ingest the externality, internalize externality by giving them stock. So the thing that we're doing in venture is now seeding the idea that every startup will create in the cap table stock for a blind trust that'll clean up the externality created by the company. So if you're the next Shell Oil, you've now given 1% stock to a blind trust that'll manage the environmental contamination caused by it. The idea is that everybody means well. You're trying to produce the next Patagonia, right? People mean well, and let's not demonize them, and they've already pre-funded the unfortunate outcomes of our work. So let's say in longevity, we mean well, we want people to be healthy, but in doing so, we're probably gonna cause new issues 50 years down the road that we can't see. But instead of doing post hoc philanthropy like the Rockefellers, or like Gates, we're saying, no, we've already given money to the blind trust. They have a stock option. So if we end up being huge, the foundation will be huge to also deal with it. That's a way to just ingest the externality. So in terms of metabolic outcomes to health, you can turn all of that into the healthcare model, right? I mean, our proposal in health insurance is instead of doing a 1-year contract with your client, the health insurer gets paid based on a 10-year contract. You get 1% upfront, and you get paid a percentage of the health savings 10 years on the road. So the payer is now an investor in your long-term health, and then they will help manage the metabolic health, including diet and exercise, because they have stock. They're an included stakeholder in your health rather than a trader with your health.
So good, thanks.
All right. Yeah. Okay, great. We have another question here from Rachel in the chat. Rachel, I'm going to search for you and I'll unmute you. And okay, awesome. You should be unmuted. What's your question?
Okay, great. So my question is for Dr. Joon as well. And so I thought what you mentioned with the kids and the video essay writing is really brilliant. It seems like skin in the game is the principle. The video and essay projects are example patterns in action. Are there other patterns that you can share with us now, or do you have them documented somewhere where we can learn more about successful patterns for creating this? And maybe that's your book and I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, no,
but I will.
No, we are totally entrepreneurs in social innovation. Our favorite modality, though, I can tell you in advance, is going to be music, because there's no other art form people want to engage over and over again. Everything has satiety. Everything is a negative feedback loop in the arts. So you're only going to want to see the Mona Lisa so many times, right? You're not going to keep going the loop every time. But song is a positive feedback loop. And so we ended up in the United States because my dad worked with the top songwriters in Korea to drive social change. And then eventually joined the World Bank, and he worked with top artists around the world. So we have a lot of friends in the music industry. So we pitched this idea of essentially being buy-side rewarders of the music industry, because their economics are going to zero, right? On the sell side, and it becomes a race to the bottom. So if we can, and we have a great advisory board in music, if we can get the music industry involved in this kind of social change, then you can watch one of the videos. One of our songwriting contests is about songwriting. The idea is to produce a playlist for the ages, where all the things we're talking about are encoded in the form factor that is going to be positive feedback loop, and through waves, it can last 1,000 years. People picking it up, the story, the playlist, 1,000 years, oh my God, this is what's happening to the world, and here's how we can contribute. So, but instead of having the songwriter, so the way we did the first one was we literally had some of the top songwriters in the industry encode inclusive stakeholding as 3 songs. I can send you guys a list with those 3. And it was unbelievable how they reinterpreted the concepts in the book in a way that didn't use any complex words. They were very everyday words, but in new patterns and using familiar tunes. And so if we can spread that opportunity, not just to the elite, this was like recording in Quincy Jones's studio where he worked with Michael Jackson, the top songwriters from Train, Coldplay, Beyonce, that they produced these 3 songs, just so we can like experience what it means to render the inclusive stakeholding as songs. And inclusive stakeholding doesn't have to feel onerous, or it doesn't have to feel like do-gooders. It can be like really normal songs, but still reflect and share the message. The way like religion actually, one of their vessels for spreading is like hymns. You all stand together, you sing the same songs. It's been used by the bad guys. I mean, Hitler used songs as propaganda, right? It can be used by the good guys. And the music and these folks love this idea because they've been waiting for this moment to be, to make positive impact rather than just focus on commercialism, especially with commercialism going to zero. So what I can do, Rachel, I can just email you kind of the general plan of how we're going to roll out these. Think about it as the Grammys for the kids, Academy Awards for the kids. All the kids they're unseen, they're TikToking in the Midwest, right? But they have all the tools to produce these things, and we're going to match them with advisors and people in the industry to do so that we enable to become better stories in the future as well.
Thank you so much. Oh my God, Joon, I don't know if you know about this effort, but and I'm blanking on the name right now. But there's this fantastic in Hollywood, like a movie company by like quite like I think an Oscar-winning. I think it was an Oscar-winning actor. Anyway, and they're trying to do something where instead of trying to produce just Hollywood movies, they're trying to use Hollywood movies to showcase really impactful science and technology projects. And so it really reminded me of your, I think your approach there. All right, great. So we're almost at the stop right now. I just want to give Francesca, Joon, and Creon the last word on, you know, if there's anything that people should take away from this, from the session, you know, how, given the fact that, you know, this is supposed to be like a hands-on workshop. So is there anything actionable that you want people to go out and do right after the session that they can follow up with? Francesca, we'll start with you.
Francesca, you're muted.
On mute. You're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry. Something that can be done, as I said before, is download the book. I put it up for free because I wanted it to be available to as many people as possible, even during this difficult time, and share it with your friends. It's I've had a very significant feedback from many friends that are Asian American and are experiencing casual racism, that it is important in general, besides my book, to highlight positive examples with your children, and so that, you know, when they go back to school after having had the same trauma that all the other kids have had because of the quarantine, they also have to face an increased you know, risk of incidents because of racism. So this is the action that I would like to ask everyone to take. Thank you very much. Thank you, Francesca. Creon.
I just want a little help from Allison and Lou and anyone. I have a categorized list of links related to the Dr. Lee Memorial Annual Celebration idea. And I want to get them up in the right place and have other people add new stuff and comment on whatever is there. So I don't exactly...
Add them to this Google Doc, to the Google Doc in the chat, and I'll make sure to follow up with all participants with the Google Doc in the chat.
Right, I may need to send you guys a link to another Google Doc because I'm having permissions issues. But anyway, I just want people, you know, I don't know anything about this and how to make it happen and if it's a good idea, so I want help.
Send me the links and I will follow up after the chat. Also, just as an aside, Creon, you should totally have a website, because all of the documents that you always share around for the community, where you do like a brain dump on everything that you learn about, like they're really hard to find, and I've just been secretly sharing them. This is just an on-site. Okay, Joon, what's your action item?
Francesca, I've downloaded your book. Creon, hopefully we can all go to Planet Labs one day together to see the amazing work there. So glad, Allison, you're putting together this extended series. So everybody, hopefully you can continue to engage on all of these fronts. For me, I would like to see, I have everybody on grid view. So how many people would love to write an essay, contribute an essay? Doesn't matter if you're on your back. Can I see a show of hands? Okay. So just send me a note saying that you're interested, and then we can start a conversation. We can even help you brainstorm ideas and provide editorial support. We want to nurture your voice, your writing, and we want these books in the future to reflect in an inclusive way the community's voice, because we don't really know. We're all drafters, but we want to draft off of your creativity, your words, your thoughts, and we want to reflect all that in future versions. So just send me a note. I'm going to write my email one more time. Send me a note if you're interested in writing. You don't have to be a professional writer, just an interest in writing. I'll put it in right here. Thank you.
Okie dokie, man, Joon, watch your inbox. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for everyone to stay on. Thanks. Sorry that we went 3 minutes over. This was fantastic. One thing that I want to close out before we go into the more informal part of this, please join the Slack group. Lou, perhaps you could share the invitation link once more. So for anyone who actually wants to kind of like continue collaborating on a like more tight-knit basis over the next 3 weeks, that's the channel in which we're going to do that. That being said, we're still definitely going to use the Google group to share with everyone ways in which I can prep for every salon and ways and all follow-up. So everything that the speakers just shared, please to all speakers, send that to me after the session so I can blast it out to the Google group. And yeah, we just invite you to kind of like make the most of this and make it as good as it can be. Thank you all so much. Thank you to our panelists for joining. This was a fantastic discussion. Please, here is the Facebook event of the Dr. Lee Celebration Day. I really welcome you to take a look at that Facebook page. Let us know, if you spot anything that should be changed. And then we'll follow up with the Google group on and invite you to kind of promote and share that event with others, especially if you're not in the US, because it would be amazing to get this to get global uptake for this. Okay, so with that said, thank you so much for joining. Whoever wants to stay on for another like 10-15 minutes or so, we're going to do some participant sharing on your bits of hope and what you'd like to take into a new tomorrow. But for now, this is the official goodbye. Bye-bye, everyone. It was really nice to see you, and can't wait to see many of you tomorrow. We're going to talk about how can we use creative media to actually spearhead cooperative culture. So very much very great succession to today's session. We are going to have Jane Metcalf from Wired and from Neolife here. We're going to have Lydia Lawrenson from the New Modality here. We're going to have Jake Harper, who's an artist here, and we're going to talk about different ways in which we can use art and art in the creative media to kind of like push out those cooperative memes. So I think it's a very good continuation of today. Okay, great. So for whoever stayed on now, we're going to go into the more hands-on way. So I think many of you have already, I think we're at 130 people or something. Many of you have already signed up to the collaboration spreadsheet, and this is amazing. For everyone who hasn't done so, please feel free to sign up. I do want to preface it, which I think many of you know, but like those salons are recorded, and the collaboration spreadsheet is out on, is on the internet. So, be mindful about information. So far, I haven't heard back from anyone yet who's, who had gotten unsolicited emails. But I just want you to be mindful and to share that with you. That being said, we usually use this collaboration spreadsheet in most of the meetings that we do. And sometimes I get messages even 3 years later saying like, can you give me access to this collaboration spreadsheet again for meeting X? I really want to follow up with this one particular person. And so they do often surface really good ways for people to collaborate. Okay, cool. So on the collaboration spreadsheet, which I just posted, there is one column which says all the way, it's column I, and it says bit of hope. In that column, you can share a link to an idea, a piece of art, a poem, a piece of music, or people, or other bits of hope that kind of inspire you that more is possible for humanity and that you'd like to take into this new tomorrow. And so we're going to do a little bit of sharing. So I welcome you all to perhaps take 30 seconds or so. Please, right now, raise your hand in the video if you have something that you'd like to share. It would be fantastic. And I think I still see a few hands up, for example, for Mindy and Mike, in case you have anything to share, that would be great. Or if it was for for like the previous question, then feel free to take the hand down. But please, for now, raise your hand. You can either do that via video or via the Zoom feature. Oh, I see one. Edward Hudgens, what would you like to share? I'm going to unmute you now.
Oh, I'm going to unmute me. Oh, okay, am I unmuted?
Yes, you're unmuted.
Ah, good. Yeah. I've been involved in probably what would be called the libertarian politics side here in America, but I don't quite fit into any particular category. But what I have seen, especially in the last number of years, and I think we see it right here today, is the growth of optimism and a belief in the future. I forget who it was. Was it Creon who mentioned Peter Diamandis? And I've been involved with the X Prize back years ago when I was doing space policy. This has become this is Peter's latest book, The Future is Faster Than We Think. I was involved last week, and I think, Janadia, you were involved as well in a discussion about reform in Africa and getting the idea of futurism and living, 100 or 200 years. I see all of this dynamism going on right now. I've been doing public policy for quite a few years, promoting, for example, Food and Drug Administration reform so we can get cures, that normally take 10 or 12 years and cost $3 billion, to people very, very quickly. So I see in this pessimistic age, all of this dynamism for something that's positive, and that I like to say it's not right wing, it's not left wing, it's up wing. And so that's why I'm involved here. This is very exciting. And I see this in the sort of groups that I've been dealing with, Abundance and some of the others, as really the hope of the future. So it's both I think we need political change. Again, I'm more of a freedom libertarian guy, but also cultural change. And that's what I'm sort of seeing here. So anyone who wants to feel better, if you feel pessimistic in this day and age, I've got 2 9-year-olds, by the way, running around here, 2 little great girlies. And so I have skin in the game. So I'm very positive to see what you are doing literally right here today, and you'll be doing in the future, and Abundance is doing, and the African group is doing.
Thank you.
So forth. Keep it up. Keep it up.
Thanks.
Okay?
All right. Thank you. That was a nice little prep talk. And Jannady, do you want to comment on it? I'll unmute you now.
Yes, thank you very much. So I very much would like to echo Edward Hudgens's sentiments, and to add to that, I think we need more depictions of a hopeful techno-optimistic future. This is why in the spreadsheet I included the link to The City of New Anti-Death, which is a high-resolution digital painting that I commissioned in 2017. If you download the full high-resolution version, you can zoom in on individual buildings or streets in that city, and those little streaks of light are actually individual flying cars with different designs to each vehicle that you could see if you zoom in really closely. I wanted this to be a cityscape that people could explore and spend time in. And I really think we need more such portrayals of what the future could be like, because so much science fiction, so many representations of the future these days are dystopian. And they're dystopian in part because of a kind of short-termist motive on the part of their creators. That is to say, I think a lot of Hollywood studios have figured out that if they send people into movie theaters and give them essentially shock value, but then also give them the comfort of knowing that, oh, at least we don't live in that kind of world, however flawed our world is, at least we're not being hunted down by Terminator bots, so we can leave the movie theater feeling somewhat good about our suboptimal predicament, but that also leaves people being complacent. I remember in the 1970s, NASA commissioned a series of paintings by Robert McCall, and Robert McCall also created a lot of his own paintings of far future landscapes and cityscapes, which I think represent a far superior aesthetic, and one that should be recaptured by artists today. And this would be my encouragement, especially in an age where we, for the most part, are staying at home. Digital content creation is the way to go. So if people can create,
yes. Thank you so much. Like, okay, it's interesting. I think, Edward, you just showing that from Robert McCall right now. I think you can't share your screen generally, but I certainly can. I think as a co-host here is, I think you can see it. Robert McCall, I think was a really fantastic artist, and I just ordered his. He had like a, I think, 50 years celebratory book edition or something. That is like, I mean, it's just really incredible to see how artistically inclined NASA was at that time to realize that actually, no, you need very like good imagery. And if you click on like the individual pieces, like the individual buttons on the website, I mean, it's really weird. Like the other day after New Year's, I made a Facebook post saying, show me any better positive science fiction or positive kind of like imagery about the future than what Robert McCall did. And nothing came up. And I had the post on for a while. A lot of people commented, but this is really just, and that's kind of the sad thing, right? Those are all, this is from the year I was born, 1991, right? And since then, we haven't really come up with things that, I think inspire me more than really his art. So I think this is a call to action, guys, like, and I think we're going to talk about it again tomorrow, but like whoever is artistically inclined, man, we need you. We need you to come up with better versions, because we can't rely on kind of like the sci-fi of back in the days, right? A few of those things are kind of funny because they feel outdated, but like still, this is still very much, I think, what keeps us going. Okay, well, you're very welcome to check out all of the art pieces. I think he's really quite fantastic. Thank you, Jenny, for highlighting him. I mean, look at this. It's really quite nice. Okay, and if any one of you has better pieces already that I may not be aware of, please send them my way. Okay, let's see. Is there anyone else who would like to share? Please say so now in the chat. Anyone else out there? Okay, well, with that being said, thank you so much for joining again today. I hope to see many of you tomorrow. Again at 11 a.m. PT for a very much, I think, more creative session. And if you're a creative type, or if you know some that are and that should be enrobed into this, then please join already. Bye bye, everyone.